I remember as the marriage declined, this love dies not with a scream, but with a whimper. And that experience for me to transition from romantic concepts of love and relationship to something different took incremental steps and steps and steps and steps of pain.
Yeah.
And so that it was when that relationship ended, I did a lot of drinking, but I don't think it wasn't the same heartbreak that I experienced previously. I think it was more self-punishment for being a failure, not wanting to feel that. My Inner Knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path.
Well, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
We had a nice warm up, so
We did.
I feel much better than 5 minutes ago.
Oh, good. I'm glad, babe.
Thanks.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. Good. Good. Adjusting, a lot of transition stuff going on, home and work. We were traveling, personally. There's just been a lot, going on. But today feels like a good day, there's always, something going on, but I definitely feel like my sleep schedule is adjusting.
Yeah, me too. But I've been positive about the fact that I keep waking up before 5 a.m.
Yeah.
But then I'm super tired by 2 or 3.
Okay.
So still working through that.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to get up at 5 a.m. every day.
Yeah. Oh.
We'll see.
We'll see. That's right. I think it's a great goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today?
Well, today we are talking about navigating heartbreak.
Tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be hard to go there.
Yeah.
Not hard, but sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heartbreak can be a lot of different things, right?
So what parts about heartbreak are you interested in?
Oh, gosh. Shoot, all of them. I think about relationally. I just recorded a meditation about navigating heartbreak. That'll come out on our YouTube channel. And oh, by the way, while I am thinking about it, make sure that you're hitting the notification button when you subscribe as well, so that you actually get notified when our new material comes out. Because that was something that I did not understand about YouTube. And I know you didn't understand about YouTube.
Not at all.
Even though we've been on YouTube for a while, that it's not just subscribing, it's clicking it again so that you get notified.
Yeah.
So
you have to click the little bell in addition to subscribing if you want to get notice of our next
of whatever it is that
post.
we post.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, surprise.
Anyway, I know.
We want all of you to join us.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So relationally, we get a lot of feedback from people about that is such a difficult thing that people don't know what to do when a relationship ends. And so whether that is intimately, friendship, family, children, it can be a lot of different things. It can be a loss of a pet as well. But today I want to focus on our intimate relationship.
Okay.
And what that experience can be like, and also, what things have we done or tried to really help us keep stepping forward when we're feeling like all is hopeless and helpless. Yeah. Yeah. What are you thinking as I share that?
Oh, just thinking through heartbreak, over time. And primarily thinking, gosh, it's really different when you're 14, but not, as opposed to when you're, in your early 20s or when you're 45.
How do you imagine
Or
it
50.
being different when you say that? What are you imagining?
Earlier ages, I don't think you've developed the coping skills unless you had really great parents that, were able to communicate with you about their experiences and help you through that process. Plus, I think a lot of us haven't started down the road of loving ourselves. And I'm not saying I'm all the way down that road at all, but I'm much further down that road than I was at, the younger me.
So when you were talking about it being different, were you thinking about the experience being different or how we get regrounded again? What were you?
I think it's the springing back part, how soon, because it's, it can still be devastating to your heart,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I think we come back faster.
Because of age or because of growth?
Yeah, growth.
Okay.
Not because of age.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear. Yeah. Right. That you meant growth. Yeah. How aware are we of ourselves? What do we understand about the complexity of relationship? The healthiness of relationship? Do we have skills? I mean, there's a lot, I think, that goes into how we rebound.
Sure.
And are we really rebounding or are we avoiding?
Bypass.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure. I don't want to feel this pain. Yeah. It's interesting. I think about, when I was like the first two people that I dated when I was in high school, interestingly, very similar experiences. They were people that were a few years older than me, which I thought meant that they were more mature. And both of them broke up with me to go back to someone they had been in relationship with before. And then those relationship ended again, and then they both tried to come back and be in relationship with me.
That's one I hadn't heard.
Yeah. And so maybe you have, I don't know, but I mean, it seems like I would have shared these with you. But the first one, I remember, him reaching out and wanting to have a conversation. And I remember him coming by my work, which is interesting because they both did that. Coming by my work, but I did, sit down, with him and have a conversation. And, he just explained why he wanted to get back in a relationship. And I remember, saying no, that that was something that just wasn't an option. If you've left me to be in a relationship with someone else, it doesn't make sense that you would want to come back. And then again, then it happened again. I was a little bit older and similar, again, situation. And I had that same experience where it was like, no, you've left, not interested. And, but then it changed. And I don't know that I could say I know why it changed. But I don't think in my mind that either one of those people were people I thought that I would be married to. And so when I was a little bit older and was dating someone and had what I would call my first experience of heartbreak, because I didn't when they both broke up with me, it was really more confusion than heartbreak. I was just like, I don't understand. That's weird. But so I would have probably been 19 when this happened. And I remember the experience being so powerful emotionally. And I don't know that I know how to distinguish it other than there must have been a part of me that had created an expectation that this relationship was the relationship, that I would be married to the person, because the attachment piece that I had to the relationship was so different than the other two people that I had dated. And so I remember when I thought that it was over, that I literally felt like I was going to die. I remember that I was in college, and I remember being in my dorm room, and I remember just the overwhelming emotion. And I, interestingly, I mean, upon reflection, not in the time, but upon reflection, I remember laying there in my dorm room, and I started, I don't know, like almost creating like a poem. And it was a poem. It was something like, oh my gosh, I'll see if I can remember. But as I lay here and start to cry, I wonder if it's my time to die. And then something about, weeping. And I mean, it was just so like heavy, right? And then I remember thinking, I need to write that down, and so I got up, and I remember writing it on this little bitty pink piece of paper. I may even still have it somewhere. I have no idea. But emotionally, it just felt more than I could manage.
Yes.
Yeah. And what do you?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm
sorry, in conversation, sometimes it takes us to our own experience, and I don't want to interrupt yours, so go ahead.
It's okay.
Anyway, let's talk about me. Thanks so much. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. That is normal, right? It's just how our brain creates association based off similar experience.
Well, and especially with a topic like this, right? Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah. So, for me, I don't know that I had a ton left to say, babe, about it, other than I just remember that helplessness and the hopelessness and, really feeling like who I was just shaken, like my identity had just been taken from me. Yeah. So
I know one thing that we'll want to talk through is how did you, how did that go for you?
Yeah. Well,
How did you get yourself out of that space at a young age?
Sure. 19, yeah. What I believe that I did that I don't think upon reflection was healthy, I just think it was the best that I knew how to do, because I hadn't been taught about how to help myself recover from an experience like that. I don't know that it was something that, I don't know. I think I don't know that we really help people get over heartbreak. We just want them to move through it, because it's hard for us to see people in pain, right, or even be a burden. People can feel like that their pain is a burden they don't want somebody else.
Here comes Mopey.
Right. Whatever. Right. So for me, what I would say at the time is I became determined to convince that person that I had value. That was what I did.
Yeah.
Right. So ultimately just tried harder to convince them that I had value.
Was your intention to win them back or just to show them?
Oh, no, to win them back. Yeah. Oh, sure. To ensure non-abandonment. Yeah. Absolutely. At that point. Absolutely. Yeah.
How'd that go?
It's successful initially.
Really?
Right.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. You are good. Misguided, but good.
Right. Misguided.
So tell us more.
Yeah. What I did is I think I learned, I really began to learn how to sacrifice myself to ensure that I stayed in relationship, is really what I feel like I learned during that time. Not to hold on to myself like I did the first 2 times when I was younger.
Oh, I was
Right?
wanting to go back to that too,
Yeah.
because it's impressive.
Yeah. I did so much better when I was younger. And that's why something in my story changed.
Yeah.
Right? Something in my identity changed, my expectations changed, that made that relationship so much more difficult. And so what I'm trying to remember, I would guess at that point that I had had sex, where the first 2 relationships I didn't. And so I don't know if there was, some story that I had about like my value, like because I had had sex at that point, then did that mean that relationship needed to work or had to work? I don't know. I can't go back to that period and be that clear about that. It's just something that, came to mind. But something changed between those relationships and that relationship. There was some attachment that had grown to that relationship. Right. So now for me, like even in the meditation that I just recorded, is really about allowing ourselves to feel it, all of it, the stories that we created, the memories that we have.
Yeah.
What did we learn from the experience? How did we maybe lose ourselves? What shame might we be carrying? And really just getting to that place of allowing the experience so that the grief doesn't get stuck in our body.
Yeah.
So that we can just keep stepping forward, keep breathing, knowing that there's an opportunity for us to learn and step into a relationship differently the next time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think I'm going to cut you off where you asked me a question.
yes.
I just thinking about that piece. And I think since I started doing meditation, and I think this is an important point when you talk about the allowing process, being able to take a breath and get yourself grounded to be able to have at least a little bit of the observer role.
Yeah.
Which is, to recognize I'm having these feelings. And while they may be real, I'm having them. They may not be true. Right. But I'm not going to judge or not judge, et cetera. I'm going to just see, allow it, whatever it is, the thoughts, but also recognizing that I'm watching this film play out that I'm creating.
Right.
And so, if there's more to that process of allowing that's helpful for people who are watching or listening, I think it would be helpful because I'm working through that with my therapist now.
Yeah. Well, what's really funny is that you haven't read that meditation, but all those things you just talked about are all the things I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I covered them. And so, though I talked about it not as a movie going by, but as leaves flowing by gently on a stream, and then allowing, there's also some really gentle self-inquiry, a lot of deep breath, recognizing, our breath and allowing our breath to be part of the release process, being, grounded in ourself and our body.
Yeah.
So there was all that, was in there. I feel like, plus I do talk about, finding good support, whether that's a friend or a family member, someone who you, feel like can truly hold that space well. for you so you can share your story.
Yeah. We don't all have that.
No, we don't all have that. No. And so, accessing resources, whether that's a therapist or, there's a lot of different help lines out there, where you can call and when you're in distress. I just don't know that we utilize them often, whether that's through shame or embarrassment or even just unawareness, that there are people that we can call who will listen, that don't cost us money because not everybody has the resources that they need for that. For me, it's, do I want to find a way through this or do I want to sit in this? And so to me, it's not, the victim part or the wallowing. It's really, can I allow myself the experience? Can I honor my emotions and my story and my identity, how as I have it defined now? And then recognizing that I, also have value and worth and I'm worthy of love and healthy relationship. And so how do I keep moving forward? By moving into action in some way, even if it's just intentionally breathing. Mm-hmm. And me, walking in nature, barefoot in the grass, feeling the wind, sensory connection, caring for yourself in some way, smelling something that smells good to you and not just that smells good, but where your body really takes it in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a lot of intentionality, but for self-care, right? Like I want to care for myself in this pain.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that in that process, not to judge ourselves because we will wallow. We're human. The issue is, can you see yourself wallowing? And, when you recognize that, trying to work for the space to be able to see it and then, continue working on finding yourself, grounding again.
Yeah. So when I think about like the difference between wallowing and honoring, wallowing is I'm going to hold on to this pain, whereas honoring is feeling it and releasing. Yeah. What do you?
I was thinking about my song, when you listen to you're like, what music do you listen to? And so every song was sad that I listened to for years.
Yeah.
And, that's wallowing.
That was wallowing.
Because I didn't know any other way to do it. Nobody ever, no one ever taught me. I didn't know. And I had a lot of things that, created that. But changing that playlist and changing my whole things I listen to anyway. Right.
Yeah, it's such a great point. I'm so glad you brought that up, babe, because that is something we often talk about in retreat when people come, is we talk about, what's on your playlist? What are you paying attention to? What are you reinforcing? And I think even that particular song, that stands out that, when you sent me, give me a second.
I got it.
Yeah. Go ahead and say
Battle Scars.
Battle Scars by...
I think it's Lupe Fiasco, but there's somebody else that sings on it too.
Yeah. And to me, that is such a powerful song.
Yeah.
Helplessness, victim, right? Like it's really like, I'm going to hold on to my pain. I have no choice. I have no freedom. I am stuck. Other people.
No way out.
No way out. Yeah. Right. No way out. And so sometimes people may need to listen to something like that to access their pain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want people to think that listening to something like Battle Scars is bad. It's just, what do we do with it?
Right.
Are we reinforcing helplessness?
Yeah.
Or are we like, wow, it felt that powerful. It felt that deep. It felt that painful. and I'm walking away from that. That isn't where I want to live.
Sure.
I want to find my value, right? I mean, so much of the month of June for us is personal empowerment, right? And so to me, some of what we're doing in regards to even this conversation is how do we find ourself on the other side of heartbreak? How do we remember that we have value?
That's our work.
Yes.
Along the path
Forever.
Which will lessen the heartbreak
Yeah.
the next time it happens in whatever context it is.
That's the hope.
But I think I really believe that our self-worth, if we can get there, is the key.
Yeah.
To how long and how deep we are in that space. And it isn't that, we're human, and having the experience is okay. It creates a depth of experience and character, but being able to move out.
Yeah.
Because we know we have value regardless of somebody else that's changed, right? Or that who we thought they were something that they weren't.
Sure. Whatever
Right.
story we created.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we all do. And so thinking about that, the navigating, heartbreak, part of that is, what story did I attach to this relationship? So that often is what our pain is really about. If we dig down underneath all the layers, which most of us don't do, like, what is this really about? I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I've been abandoned, right?
Yeah, sacrificing myself is romantic and honorable. That's what I believed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go to you then. Let's rewind and pick up where you felt some connection to the story I was sharing.
Yeah, my experience is very different
Yeah.
than yours. I wasn't that person who was strong the first time because I didn't have a sense of self-worth based on how I grew up. There was just lots of neglect. And so, I had a girlfriend when I was 10, I gave her a little stuffed toy on her birthday, which was the same birthday as mine. But, we sat on the bus together a few times, and then she broke up with me, and it was really, I was a little sad, but not really, so that doesn't really count. It was like puppy love. But then,
I think it can count.
well, for whatever reason, it wasn't the same as what happened when I had she was my first girlfriend for, 2 weeks or whatever, right? You said. And then my next girlfriend was like in 8th grade, and it didn't last very long either, and she wanted to date a high school guy, right?
Okay.
So that hurt, but I got over it just by being mean to her afterwards, So it was a weird thing. We talked more easily after she broke up with me, actually, and somebody's like, "You guys like each other more now than when you were a couple."
Interesting.
Which was weird.
Yeah. Stories we carry.
Yeah, but it was just like, "Oh, really? I'm not good enough because I'm not a high school guy." So in any event. So then the only other person I dated and married was my ex-wife from the time we were 14. She came after my 8th grade breakup. She was my next 8th grade girlfriend.
Yeah.
And so, just given my family situation, because, my parents were divorced, my dad was basically never home.
Yeah.
I got taken into her family, they fed me. I was like one of their kids almost. And so, they took me to events, that sort of stuff. And so it was like having a family to me. And so, I don't know. There were things that happened along the way that were hard, more than once.
Yeah.
well, I won't, I need to be with my friends on my birthday. And so, that was like the first taste of it. And then I don't know how old we were, maybe 16. I ran track, played different sports, but I ran track, and she was like the manager of the track team or whatever, keeping track of who was running what races, etc. But in any event, one day she just tells me, well, she didn't even tell me who it was. It was just games, Well, who is it? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Yeah, but he's got blue eyes, and you can see.
Yeah.
I don't.
You don't. Right.
And so she thought that something was going to happen, I guess, and it turned out he didn't like her. And then in that process, the advice I got from my dad, because I was moping around the house, I was heartbroken.
Yeah.
And wallowing like no tomorrow, because this concept I had then of romantic love was the only one that I'd seen, in movies or whatever. And there weren't a lot of movies back then.
Yeah.
But enough to think that chivalry was debasing yourself for the happiness of the other person. Whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And, the sad part about that is, and it's so funny because we watched The Princess Bride, your sons love it. And I love the movie too. It's a great movie, but Wesley, is doing that.
Right.
As you wish.
As you
and
wish.
After we watched it, then I would say, as you wish. And then I stopped because I was like, you know what? I've been there before.
Right.
And actually, I love you.
Yeah.
But I won't do that.
Right. You sing that song
Meatloaf,
too. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Walker likes to use music as
I do.
as a way of communicating. Yeah. Which is funny. I enjoy it. Yeah.
Anyway, but I don't know. I'm kind of wandering around here, but the point that just came up to me was this, and it's that when you don't have a sense of self, if you think that romantic love and true love, which I did, was I will sacrifice whatever I am, whatever I have for you to be happy. The sad part about that is the other person is smothered in the process because you are not your own person. You're needy.
Yeah.
And so that's a hard thing to learn. And it took me a long, long time to learn it.
Yeah.
But in any event, she came back after she was, I guess, rejected by this other guy. And, I remember sitting on the couch. So we're having this conversation. There wasn't any texting back then because there were no cell phones. And so you couldn't break up by text or you couldn't get back together by text either. I guess you could pass a note through a friend or you had to have a meeting actually face to face. And instead of having pride and thinking it through, and it's like, listen, I like myself way too much to be treated like that, to just be, cast aside because you fell in love with somebody's blue eyes. You don't even know the guy.
Yeah.
I didn't have that. And so, yes. And that set the stage for 30 years of marriage and similar tests.
Yeah.
Disregard. And I was no angel in that process. I would be reactive, scream, curse, and, horrible.
Yeah.
But it worked. I lost every time I, called her a name because all of a sudden it was me who was doing the thing. But in any event, and I'm sure that whatever my habits are could be annoying too. But in any event, it's another thing that I want to say after going through all that is just I remember as the marriage declined, this love dies not with a scream, but with a whimper. And that experience for me to transition from romantic concepts of love and relationship to something different took incremental steps and steps and steps and steps of pain.
Yeah.
And so that it was when that relationship ended, I did a lot of drinking, but I don't think it wasn't the same heartbreak that I experienced previously. I think it was more self-punishment for being a failure, not wanting to feel that. Because when it was over for me, finally.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying there weren't moments when I was like, gosh, was this a mistake or whatever, but not a lot. So in any event, I don't know where the heck I was going, but that, my experience was so different. I didn't have the family support that you had. I don't know, at least I only had one parent who was never there, right? Is all I'm saying. I don't know where you got your sense of self-worth, but you had it that first time or the first two times. And I did not. And so that was the course that it took for me. And where that concept came of what is love, probably because my parents had gotten divorced and it was like, oh, if it had just been this way. And my mom would listen to sad music all the time. So that stage was set.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when they got divorced, she didn't take anything. And it was like, I think I heard her say, if you love somebody, you don't ask.
Wow.
So I have had a lot to learn. But finding yourself as a person, having self-respect and self-like, I think is a critical piece to having healthy relationship so that you're not needy. I mean, we may be needy from time to time, but not in the same way.
Yeah.
Not as in, I will not survive if I don't have you, right?
Right.
Talk about a wet blanket
Right.
on the other person. It might feel good for a while, but
Yeah.
that's my thought. What
Yeah.
do you think? Ball's back in your court. I did a lot of talking.
Well, I was just thinking about needs. I mean, there was, I remember being told that I was needy. And in this particular case, even upon reflection, I wasn't unreasonably needy. I was just asking for something the other person wasn't willing to give. And I remember one time, that being said to me and me saying, you know what? This is what I know. You are no less needy than I am. It's just your needs are different than mine.
Yeah.
I want connection. I want relationship. I want depth. You want to not be interrupted. You want there to be a schedule. You want all these things. And so we both have needs. Our needs are just different. But you're valuing mine as more needy than your needs. But they're not. Yeah. But what we need is very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me in that process. I don't want people to, because it's like this, there's a line at some point, right? Between I have needs and I have, I don't know what the word is, standards in relationship. These are the must-haves, right? And having those types of boundaries and expectations, I think, can be healthy. to a point. And so there's a difference between that and being the needy that I was describing, which is my whole sense of self is wrapped around whether you like me
Right.
or you
Right.
respect me.
Right. Right.
And that's a big difference for people to recognize.
Right. Right.
Have you run into that in the therapy chair?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've worked with plenty of people over the years who had, for whatever reasons, many reasons, whether that's family, society, specific circumstances, where their entire value was based on how their partner interacted with them, treated them. Right. There was no sense of self, for sure.
Yeah.
And that, so my identity it's so inconsistent because it comes from you. So if my identity comes from you, then I don't know how that can't be overwhelming, right? Whether the other person is healthy or not healthy,
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
If they're on the healthy side, it will be like overly burdensome at some point. It's like we cannot carry
Right.
someone else's sense of self.
Right.
Not completely anyway.
Right. So I think, to me, the conversation goes back to everything that we talk about, right? Which is developing your sense of self, your knowing, your intuition, who am I? Experimenting, exploring, having contrast in life, what is it that I truly want? What do I value? What's important to me? And I think those questions can be very difficult to answer.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure.
and there's always that difference between sense of self and then self-absorption, right there.
So we're so complex.
We are so complex.
It's all about me now.
It's so complex.
Yeah.
Anyway, so just thinking about that, the heartbreak, allowing the process of the emotion, the feeling, the experience, having the intention of releasing it, of it moving, not being stuck. And then for me, always stepping into a different experience, some contrast. For me, I'm like, okay, take a class, meet other people, find something that I might enjoy or, be competent in, work on our playlist, find some things that are, empowering as well, that can help us find hope.
Yeah. And obviously I'm a proponent of therapy, but even if it's not professional, just how you can do it. I mean, professionally is the best way, frankly, but figuring out how to like yourself, how to have self-worth, and to be able to say these are and you have a term for it that you've talked about where you say, what are your must-haves in a relationship?
Oh, yeah.
What do you call that?
So when I have clients who are wanting, considering stepping into a relationship again, and this was an exercise, I don't know where it came from, and I've modified it, over time, but it was, I think, called like the heaven and hell list. And I think that
I heard that one.
I think it was like, if you could have anything you wanted, that would be like the heaven list. And then if it was, everything you absolutely don't want, then that would be the hell list. And so it's not how I refer to it, but that may have come from somewhere. So what I talk to clients about is getting really clear about what's important to you.
Right.
And not just from that relationship that ended, but any other relationship. But even if it's not an intimate partner, if it's a, close friend or family, what is it that you truly value in another person and relationship, and what, characteristics do you want them to have? And then, what are absolutely things that are just not an option?
Deal breakers.
Right. What are the deal breakers?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then when I go through the attributes that they want, because that typically can be a pretty long list, is we'll go through each one and it's like, which one is a non-negotiable?
There you go. That was the word.
Right.
What are your non-negotiables?
Non-negotiables, right. And so I remember, this particular situation years ago where, the person had stepped into a relationship again, and, we would go through the list and it would be like, okay, that's a no. And then, okay, that person's a no. Okay, then that person's a no. And then this next person they had met quite a few things on the list that were positive, but there was one non-negotiable negative. And that conversation was, truly, is this something that you want to risk? I understand that they have all these other positive attributes, but this was a non-negotiable when you made this list. And the reason we made the list is because we often then compromise ourselves.
Right.
So that we can be chosen.
Right.
So that we can not be abandoned. Right. And so we'll compromise our own list. And so writing it down and having someone who can compassionately, thoughtfully work with you through that, so that you can more intentionally make the choice whether you're stepping into that relationship or not. Ultimately, in that case, that person did not. They ended the relationship and decided that it was not worth risking.
Yeah.
But I have found that, I've probably been doing that exercise with people 17 years, I would guess. And so many people have found it so helpful. And I think that it also, when we get clear about what it is we're wanting, it's easier for us to see it when it's around.
Sure. Absolutely. Right? Mm-hmm. It comes back to the, self-worth thing, I think.
Yeah.
Still, can I stand? Just a thought I had just for any maybe even young men that might be watching or listening is that, when I'm talking about you have to have self-worth and you can't be wrapped up in what the other person thinks or does, it doesn't mean that, you're you become stoic, right? Completely. And it's just like I'm in relationship, but nothing matters. There's still love and respect and, desiring of that closeness, I think. And so I want to make sure, that by saying what I said about romantic love, that I don't suggest that, you not have consideration for the other person's wants, needs, desires, feelings, those sorts of things, right?
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
Because I think that's real relationship, but also the ability to, have separation.
Mm-hmm. So, I think I'm trying to remember what the terminology was, to be clear, from graduate school. It's been a long time. But I think healthy relationship is our ability to be, I wish I could remember. So differentiation, this ability to be, connected but separate, right?
Right.
And so when I think about, developing a sense of self, I don't think about it, that way that you were clarifying. For me, if I have a sense of self, no matter what comes towards me, no matter what I experience, even if it is painful and I experience loss and grief, that I don't lose who I am in the process, that I can find myself again, that resilience that, that we talk about throughout our different podcasts is so important. Reflecting, like what have I done in this relationship that was healthy? What have I done that wasn't so healthy? being as aware as we can, and often with the help of others, to help us point out the things that we do that aren't very healthy. But finding those things doesn't mean that that I'm getting stuck, right? It's really identifying the areas that I just need more growth in. I need more skill in. So sense of self to me. So my Mikase name with Boy Scouts is Deep Rooted Willow. And so for me, I don't know if willows are deep rooted or not. I'm not sure.
Well, yours is.
Mine is. But really what that was about for me when I was asked to choose my name was that steadfastness, but also that flexibility
Right.
at the same time. And so I feel like that's very important when we're developing a sense of self, is really to have that root deep, like this is who I am.
Right.
So that as these different life experiences happen, I can feel it. I'm impacted by it. Obviously, I'm being moved by the experience, but I'm not losing my center.
Right.
I know who I am.
Right.
And I knew it, and then I lost myself, and then I've worked, I feel like the last 25 years, finding myself again.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just striking me. There's like, you can still sacrifice for the other person, and you can give. There's reciprocity, and so that if you are doing that every time on every issue, that's what I did, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
But in relationship, I want to be giving and generous and loving, and not always have to have my way.
Right. Right.
Right. But there's a balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you laughing about?
What I'm
you got
laughing
this big
about.
smile.
Well, yeah.
So what's up?
What I'm laughing about is when you asked me early in our relationship whether I liked the book The Giving Tree or not. And I said absolutely not.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
right.
that's who I was.
Right.
I feel like.
Until.
She may say different.
Right. But that was your experience.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
There wasn't a lot left of you.
I don't think
at the
so. But I honestly, I just thought that was love.
Right.
I did.
know.
It's just so misguided.
Yeah.
And like I said, if the other person is healthy, it's still a burden. But if they're not healthy or they're immature, just looking back at that, I mean, that's one of the roles or parts that I played in the devastation of the relationship.
Right. Right.
If I had had more of a sense of self and not been completely having my self-worth tied up in her, who knows? Maybe, from us being young people growing, that it would have turned out differently.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It would have helped.
Well, it would have been
us.
right, and it would have been different, and it would have helped.
Sure,
right?
or it would have ended
Right.
sooner. I mean, instead of this strangling, over years death, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It's tragic is what it is. It really. Yeah.
So also then for people seeking examples of healthy relationship,
Yeah.
right, which I think sometimes can be difficult for us to find. Yeah. But knowing that, as we talk about, it's messy. As much effort as you and I put into relationship every day,
Yeah.
it's still messy. It's still complex. We just keep learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that keeps coming to mind, and I want to get it out before we're done. Because
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
we're
Probably
close. Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of our listeners, we've posted, and then I did a reel about, hey, what's something you wish your parents had
Yep.
told you?
Yep. We're working on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, this is touching on that topic. We'll do some more shorts along the way, but in the midst of that first big breakup, I just completely
Yeah.
devastated. And my dad says, well, it's probably for the best anyway, because you didn't really have any other friends besides her. And that was true. However, coming from him, I was defensive of her, frankly, in my heart.
Yeah.
So that wasn't helpful.
Yeah.
But I don't know that he had any capacity really,
Sure.
other than to just turn off and say, well, I don't care about anyone but me,
Right. That's how he protected himself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of growing and learning, just protected himself more,
Yeah.
which I think is common. We're just trying to, help people be more intentional about their process. So
Yeah, I mean, if he'd been able to say, listen, let's sit down and talk about self-worth, and we'd had that conversation, who knows how different that might have been, right?
Yeah, right.
And it was just a slight change in degree from a parenting perspective, that if he'd been able to say the words that we're talking about, which is, listen, you can't base your whole self on how somebody else feels about you, because feelings change, people change.
Yes.
And that season may be over.
Right.
And somebody else is going to love you. But you loving yourself is the most important part.
Yeah.
Big hug. Shoo! Could have saved decades of issues. Maybe. So anyway, I just didn't want it was such a good opportunity to give that example.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
yeah.
Yeah. Holding space, right? Holding space for people who are in pain, right? And then, how can I best support you, in this? And, as a parent, for sure, helping our child understand the complexity of relationship would be helpful. Yeah. Well, thanks for the conversation, babe.
Thank you. I love you.
I love you too. We wanted to take a moment to encourage you to take the 10 essential skills to build stronger and healthier relationship course.
We've all heard it said that when you get to the end of your life, you're not looking back at the money that you made or the things that you had, but at the relationships that you had with your children, your family, your friends, and your coworkers. We hope you'll join us.
Yeah, we truly believe it is worth the effort. Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self-growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.